Hello everybody, welcome to this tutorial on Nikon's microscope camera software, NIS elements, as well as the microscope in our lab, just showing you how to use a polarizer, and as well as traditional bright field optical microscopy. So I'm going to be bouncing back and forth between the screen and showing you the hardware on the microscope as well. So hopefully you enjoy the video. If you do, give a like and subscribe if you feel like it. There's more tutorials on my page and hopefully some conversations coming up eventually. You know how busy life can be. So we'll jump in to the video right away and hopefully give you a quick run through on this. I'm going to try to do it quickly and not belabor some of the simple things or some of the preferential things. Okay, so the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to open up NIS elements. So we're going to get that pulled up. Before you turn on NIS elements, you have to first turn on the power to the camera and the microscope, so that way the software can recognize the camera. Then the next thing you're going to do is click on the FI3 camera when it pops up, and you're going to click OK, and that will select your camera. If you have multiple cameras, you pick which camera you want the software to recognize. Right now we only have the one, so it automatically selects the one that we want to look at actually, so that's pretty nice. So now we open up to the NIS elements software. And what's happening here is with the software open, you can see this main window here that's empty. That's where your image will show up. You can also see several items on the right side in the form of tabs on this docking station on the right. Now this isn't how it's going to show up when you first log in. The first thing you're going to want to do is go through a series of steps to kind of get to this. It's kind of an easy to use setup. It's kind of what our lab uses the most. So to get to this setup, first you'll want to go over to this control tab where it says simple. You can see if you flip through it, it changes the settings. So we like to use simple because it's simple. Then once you go to simple, when you first open it, there's going to be a whole bunch of windows open, and what you're going to do is you're going to close all of the windows. So then the only thing on the screen is this big screen with the Nikon logo. And then when you right click, you can click, you pick dock to the right, because then you can put it on the right. If you feel like putting it on the left, put it on the left. That's totally personal preference. It'll save individually for each user. But I like to dock mine on the right, so I dock it on the right. And then when you dock it on the right, you'll get an extra window on the right side where you can start opening windows. And then all you have to do is you go to the top and you right click, and then you can go to these different arrows to add different things to this, and you can move these tabs around in whatever pattern you would like. So you can see how I kind of have mine set up. I have these two windows here, and then I have my manual microscope pad on the bottom. So the reason I picked these pads, I suggest to you to pick the same pads at a minimum. If you want more pads, you can add more pads. But the FI3 pad lets you control the camera. You can change the resolution of while you're looking and while you're in live mode. That's what fast is. The quality capture you always want on the highest, because then you get the highest quality pictures. You can change your auto exposure here. It's automatically on continuous auto exposure, so I just leave it on that most of the time. On top of that, you can also do your auto white. So if your colors aren't quite right, you can put a piece of paper over it. Click the auto white button. That will reset the white for the camera. And then when you're doing the rest of your session, it should be correct. The other thing here is the annotations page, which we'll get to in a minute. And then the manual microscope pad. Now, to find each of these, just in case you're setting it up, under acquisition, you can find your FI3 pad here. You can find the manual microscope pad here, and then under analysis controls, you can find your annotation and measurements pad here. Now these all let you do specific things for the microscope, and we'll jump into that now. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to pick your lens. We always start with the lowest lens we can, which is the 5x. The 5x lens is this red one. This does not, the microscope pad in the software doesn't automatically change when you change it on the actual physical microscope. So you will want to make sure every time you change a lens to change the actual setting in the software, so that way it knows what scale to use when you apply different measurements and annotations and scale bars and things. So I picked 5x. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click play. Remember that my microscope's already on, the camera's already on. So all that's going to happen is I click play, and it's quite obviously out of focus. So now I'm just going to use the focus knob on my actual microscope to bring my image into focus. So you can see we have an etched brass microstructure with lots of twins. So now if you wanted to capture an image, all you have to do is click this little camera button at the top, and that captures the image. And then if you want to annotate, you go over to your annotation page and you can annotate with basically whatever you want. I'll leave you to play around with some of these, but some of my favorite are like the horizontal length measurement and the vertical length measurement. And all you do is you find a feature you want to measure. So say we want to measure the length of this grain here, or the width, I guess, horizontally, and you just click once, and then you go to your next spot and you click again. Before you burn these in, you still have freedom to move them. If you, so you can change the actual text. You can also grab one edge of this and change the length, and it'll remeasure it. So don't be afraid to make mistakes on this part. You can always do that. So there's lots of other tools over here. Like there's this area tool too, where you can measure areas of things, where you just keep clicking. You just keep left clicking to make your shape, and then you right click when you're done, and it tells you what the area of that shape is. You can also, if you right click and then go to properties, you can change the text or the font of any of these text box. If you click on the actual arrow and click properties, you can change the line color, line width, anything you want really. There's lots of ways to personalize this or make it look nice. So that's just up to you to figure out what your preference is. I kind of have mine edited here to my preference with the mostly black. If I want to see it a little bit better, sometimes I put on like a white background so that way it shows up. But anyhow, the other thing I want to show you real quick specifically is the scale bar. So if you just click the scale bar, it will put a scale bar on the bottom. Again, you can, if you right click and go to scale properties, you can change a whole bunch of the different scale properties. You can change the style, you can change the font, you can change the color, etc., etc. The other thing that's handy to remember is that you can right click and go to default scale position. So you can move this wherever you want on here. And if you right click, go to default scale position, it'll put it in the same location every single time. And what that does is it helps, it makes it so you know exactly where your scale bar is going, so that way your pictures look consistent. So now when you're happy with all your annotations, and I like to save my image with no annotation, so I take the picture and then I save it, which you can just do file save as to do that. But after you have all that done, once you've annotated and you're happy with how it looks and you want to save this image, the first thing you have to do is click the Y button. When you click the Y key, your annotations are now burned in. You can't move them, you can't change them. But now when you go to file save as and save this image, it will save it with all of this on the image as part of the image. As far as saving the images, I recommend you saving them as a TIFF because it saves what nose piece you're using, what the zoom is essentially. So then you can always go back and readjust scales or remeasure things, even if you don't remember off the top of your head. If you save it as a JPEG or a PNG, you still get a decent image quality, but you don't get the extra data from the microscope. So now that we've done that, now we're going to go up in mag. So we're going to go back to the live button. We're going to go over to the 10x lens just by turning the nose pieces here, and you can see we have 5, 10, 20, and 100. 5, 10, 20, 50, and 100. Sorry if I forgot about 50. And there's all these on the bottom too. So we've changed the 10, so let's go ahead and click 10. Use your fine focus knob to refocus, and you can see we have a pretty good image here of this brass. We're going to go ahead and go up to 20 now. So you rotate the turret again, and now we're up to 20, and we can focus again. You see we still have a very good image here. So what I wanted to kind of go over now is a couple extra features. One of the first features is this magnifying glass. If you click the magnifying glass and then you can optically zoom in on different areas. I'm still working. I know there's a way to get it to stay on your image. Oh, there it is. Oh, that was the actual image. Anyhow, there's a way to get the magnifying glass to stay on the image. I haven't found the right setting yet to get that to happen, but just keep in mind that that's an option if you want to do a little digital zooming on there, especially if you're at the maximum optical lens or something anyway. The other thing that you can do is if you go to applications, we have the HDR application. So you can do capture reflection-free images, excuse me. So if you're doing something that's like highly polished, highly reflective, but you want to pick out like defects or pores, what you can do is capture reflection-free imaging. We'll just do that here just to show you what it does. And it essentially creates an HDR image, and it kind of tones down the brightness of a lot of those highly reflective areas. So you can see here in this image now, a lot of those highly reflective grains are now dulled out. And it makes it a little bit easier to look at. With this particular sample, it's not a huge deal. It kind of actually makes the image worse, in my opinion. It adds contrast where there's not really real contrast, but it's just something to keep in mind. So we're gonna go ahead and go back to live now. And then the other thing we can do is we can acquire a stitched image of a larger area. So if we go to acquire, and then we go to manual large image, you can just click OK here, and then you'll get this window like this. And all you have to do is click start, and then once you click start and you click yes, it'll take the first image, which can be the middle or an edge or something like that. And then all you're gonna do is you're gonna move this green box with reference to the original image. It's important to remember to go slow. If you go too fast, the box will turn red, because it will not be able to find the original image. Once the box turns purple, it means that it's ready to take an image, I think. You have to turn on auto capture. So I apologize, I forgot to do that. But once you turn on auto capture, once the box turns purple, it means it's ready to take an image. If it's green, there's essentially too much overlap for it to automatically take an image. So, you can just keep moving around. Oops. See, when it's red, there's either not enough overlap or you're going too fast. So you can just keep moving around and taking these images. It will continue to stitch them together, and it does a pretty good job. If you're trying to get a map of a large area with high resolution or something, this is a pretty good option. So once you're done, so say this is all I wanted, I have all the area I need with a decent enough resolution. I just click finish, and it processes. And now that it's successfully stitched all this together, now it opens it up in this window, and I can do all my normal annotations. And since I logged what lens I was using when I was capturing the original image, it actually knows the dimensions per pixel on this. So like if I want to add a scale bar, it automatically knows to adjust the scale on the scale bar to whatever the image size is. So the stitching on this is very useful. Obviously it's very clean. There's not like weird shadowy lines or anything. So this is a tool that we use a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and show you next how to set up the polarized mode on the microscope. So we'll go back to live. We'll leave it at 10x. We don't really, it doesn't really matter what mag we use, I guess. Sometimes the high, actually we'll go up. We'll go up to 50. Or, is that 50? Yeah, let's go up to 50. So when we go up to 50, we get a microstructure that looks like that. So now we're up at 50x, and we want to look at a polarized image of this with polarized light. Sometimes you can see kind of like topographical, goodness, excuse me, features and things like that with polarized light. Sometimes different etchants show up differently because of the difference in thickness and the way they refract light. So using polarized light can give you some interesting results. So the first thing you're going to do is actually on the microscope. You're going to go to whatever lens that you want to look at in polarized, and you're going to take the prism and you're going to turn it to in. When the prism is out, you're doing normal imaging. When the prism is in, you're doing polarized imaging. So now that the prism is in, we can now insert the polarizer into the microscope. And then after we insert the polarizer, we can insert the analyzer. And we can now see that we start to see some different contrast. We start to see a little bit different refraction in some of these shinier greens. The next thing that we can do, if you want to kind of play around with different angles of polarization, is there is a wheel on the polarizer that you can turn that turns the polarizer. And you can see as we turn the polarizer, we start to get different kinds of contrast. Different grains start to turn different colors depending on how they reflect that polarized light. So that's definitely something that you can play with. On the wheel, there is a white dot. When that white dot is perfectly out to the left of that polarizer, that means that you have, I believe that's a 90-degree polarized light. So that's about max as far as polarized light can be. So again, if you want to take this image, you just click the camera button, and then you can, then there's the scale bar on the bottom here. It says 50 microns. So I think that's about it. Just like everything else, you can add any kinds of annotations you want. This is just different settings on the actual microscope itself. Please don't change the calibration. If it needs recalibrated, please reach out to somebody who is trained to do the calibration. Currently, each lens is calibrated to the right distance, and we should never have to change that unless it somehow gets messed up in the software. So please don't mess with that. There are lots of different things you can do, different masks and thresholding. There are different annotation types you can use with different angles of things, and I'm going to leave that up to you to test out and play with. You can always, if you measure something and you don't like it, you can always right-click and remove. So don't be afraid to play around with things. You can even you can go up to the scale bar. If you just unclick that, it takes the scale bar off. So just keep all that kind of stuff in mind. When you're done with your session, all you have to do is close the NIS elements and say okay. Usually at this point you can just close all. I like to save as I go along to make sure things are saved. You could wait until the end and then save them all at the end, but that's a little I get a little scared that I'm accidentally going to delete something that I want. So then by the end I can just click close all and it shuts down. Now that that is shut down, we can turn the camera off, and we can turn the power to the microscope off, and we can take our sample away. And then the last thing you're going to do is you're going to put the cover on the microscope, so that way no dust gets on your lenses, no dust gets in the camera. Remember that if you are using the polarizer at the end, to take the polarizer, analyzer, and prism out, so that way when people go to take their normal bright field images, which most people use, they're not confused as to why the polarizer, or why their images look weird, which would be because you left the polarizer in. So that's all I really have for today. Thanks for watching the video. If you need anything, you can comment on this video. You can also send me an email or reach out to our group here at Penn State. So thank you for listening, and have a great rest of your day.